All
Got
right,
on my clean shirt.
looks like we are live. Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to Living in the Texas Hill Country. We have Brad Roeder joining us today. He is the Agriculture and Natural Resources Extension Agent for Gillespie County. And Brad, I don't know if you wanted to share anything about yourself. You're welcome to, though.
Oh, good morning, Carly. Well, thank you. Well, yes, just to give you a little background, I've been in Extension about 12, 13 years now. Before this, I had a life with Texas Department of Agriculture and the Go Texan program, and I worked all the way from San Antonio down to up to San Angelo. And so I'm very similar to a county agent as well, worked with companies on selling their food products, and so worked with a lot of the agents in the area. So was very in tune with Extension. Grew up in 4-H and FFA, and so always was at the Extension office. And right now, currently live on our ranch just west of Fredericksburg. Got a wife and two kids. One's a College Station, is a sophomore and an Aggie, and the other one's a sophomore here at Fredericksburg High School. So,
Awesome. Well, thank you. And so I asked Brad to come on today because in Gillespie County, and this is kind of my perspective, I may be saying the wrong words or phrasing it not in the best way. So feel free to correct me. But Gillespie County has several, are they called wildlife management associations?
yes, they are. Yes. And
Um,
so it just to give you a little update. So there sometimes they're called areas or associations. Parks and Wildlife has their own wildlife management areas that are like the Mason Mountain area. So sometimes there's a confusion in terminology there, but we call them just WMAs for short. We have four here in the county, and they are a loose group of landowners that come together or hunters, and we have officers, and we meet about 3 or 4 times a year for each association, minimum of two. And so they were developed back in the 1980s, or the first one was, which was Doss. And the main thing there, Mr. Dury Menzies was our old county agent, and he was my county agent when I was here. If you remember back when I was a kid in the 80s, if you saw a 6 or 8 point buck, it was actually something pretty unique. Most of them were spikes, 4 pointers, tons of does, and so deer just really overrun. And if you had a nice 8 or maybe even a 10, which was pretty rare, if you didn't shoot it, your neighbor was going to shoot it. So everybody just shot pretty much every buck they saw. Also, that a lot of those ranch managers grew up in the day of screwworm, and so it was kind of unthinkable to shoot a doe when we had screwworms back in that day because she was going to reproduce the next generation. And so a lot of those landowners would not shoot a doe. It was just ingrained into them. And so if they shot anything, they was going to shoot a buck. And so our doe population really exploded at that time.
oh, wow.
So that's kind of as one association took off and really got going, then they developed the other three associations, and that covers about 75% of the county. We do have a small section, the southeast side of the county, that never formed an association for whatever reason. And so, anyways, but the four associations are Doss, Cherry Springs, and Cave Creek, and then Harper. Harper's the only one that goes outside the county. It goes in a lot into Kimball County, and it takes into consideration the Harper School District was how those boundaries were drawn. So
Okay,
that's a little background on those four WMAs.
cool. And so you had mentioned, seeing like a 6 or 8 point buck and that being kind of unique. Now we see, or my opinion, we see bigger deer nowadays, and that has been achieved through good management practices. And so, I guess what is that the point of them? You kind of talked about like, if you're not going to shoot it, your neighbor's going to shoot it. So are
Yeah.
these associations kind of to kind of come together and make sure that we're all not, no pun intended, but shooting for the same goals?
Yes, yes. So that they are, or that's the goal behind them. Obviously, every landowner is not So about probably 20% of the acreage in Gillespie County is enrolled in a WMA. And so not every landowner attends every meeting. And so one of the purposes of a WMA, if you get on the state WMA website, is to have local groups. And so that's why we don't have a county-wide association. You want these kind of local. You also want them to get together and meet face to face, which today is getting harder and harder. Everybody wants to meet online. And the reason is to join, to get those friendships between neighbors and get that common working knowledge that, hey, I know my neighbor, and I know now that if I can let that buck go, and probably he's not going to get shot. He's going to have similar type management goals as I have. And so I know I can let that buck jump the fence and he's not going to get shot. And that's one of the things that the WMA tries to do, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. Every year they do multiple wildlife spot or deer spotlight surveys along county roads. And so each association will actually do about 15 of those. Landowners have to get together to complete that. So there's great, camaraderie there and sharing of ideas. And then we take those surveys and every harvest book or every book that goes to every hunting cabin gets a report on what the spotlight survey saw. And so they can say, our biologist, then Joyce Moore, worked heavily with Parks and Wildlife, does a deer harvest recommendation. You can harvest one mature buck per X number of acres, maybe 75 to 100, and you probably ought to harvest 2 to 3 does per 50 acres to get our doe to buck ratio better. And so we not only work on the age of the bucks, we also try to work on the herd density and the herd sex ratio as well, all with that spotlight survey harvest recommendation. And so quite a lot of moving parts there to try to balance the natural herd, as you would say.
Cool. Yeah. And that's something really, in my opinion, important too, is getting with the biologist to kind of get some of that done. And so, if you aren't in a WMA, can you still get that done, or is that one of the added benefits?
You can. You can work with yes, you can work with a biologist individually. You can do your own spotlight survey on your ranch, and that's what she's going to go off of. And I know every county has a different wildlife biologist, so everyone's probably got their likes and don't likes on what you can and can't do. But yes, you can definitely do that, and would recommend it. Even if you don't form a whole wildlife management association, if you and several neighbors just wanted to get together, we've looked at doing that with my family ranch and several ranches around us. Because the wildlife management is voluntary only. We don't have any hard rules to say you can't shoot this, you can shoot that. But we were looking with my family's ranch. We've got about 10 to 15,000 acres of us and neighbors, about maybe putting some hard rules on where, unless it's a first time buck, your 5-year-old granddaughter can shoot whatever she wants. But after that, we're going to have pretty strict standards on what can be harvested. So. One thing that a lot of people don't understand, managing deer on open range is a lot different than managing deer in high fence. And so we see a lot of recommendations. You need to shoot this, you need to shoot that. A lot of that comes out of high fence areas where they can be heavily regulated. In the nature, we're doing it. Our biologist calls it like a 30,000 foot spotlight looking down. We can't get real particular. We're not going to make changes super fast, but we're going to keep things better than what they were and hopefully move forward and not go backwards, if that makes sense. So that's kind of our goals. Our goals are long term. They're not looking, hey, we're gonna jump our Boone and Crockett score by 10 points in 2 years. We're hoping to do that over 8 or 9 years realistically.
Sure. And so, so I think maybe some people may look and say, oh, I don't want to do that because you're just putting more restrictions on it. But so I like the way that you explain that, because it's we say good management, but what does that really mean? But that was a perfect example and description of it. And so if that's your goal, then this is a good way to get that done, it sounds like. But
Definitely, definitely.
and so you
So
mentioned
one of the
oh,
things I just one of the things we do go what we use to help help collect data is every camp gets a what we call a harvest book. And so all of those books are filled out by the hunters and they have a lease license in there. One of the benefits of being in a WMA is the landowners get their lease license for $25, where if you went to Walmart and bought one, it'd be 75 to 150. And so we get a lot of people that do it just for that. I'm not going to pull the wool over my eyes, but a lot of people do it just for that. And that bothers me, but also we make harvest books and we have information on feral hogs and we have information on the spotlights. And so all of that gets to be put in front of the hunters, even though the landowner may not push it. And then every time a hunter shoots a buck, they are supposed to fill out that harvest book. And we have scantrons in there and it's like tine length, spread, points, weight. Try to guess age. We know a lot of people are not very good at guessing age other than just
sure.
by looking at the deer and kind of guessing. And the date it was shot, or at least by month and week. And so we know they get filled out pretty good, because if they don't and the game warden comes by and we ask for their license and says, well, why aren't these tags in the book? Then, they could get in trouble. So most
Mm,
of them do a good job. They do guess on the age and probably some of them guess on the weight too. But in terms of the other stuff, they're probably pretty good. So we've got about 10 years of data on that. We have seen a steadily increasing in our average weight shot. So we like that. Also, our spread has gone up some. Everything else has stayed pretty consistent. And the drought of 2022 and 2023 really brought us back down to our beginning, but we rebounded very fast. So it'll be interesting to see what the next 2 or 3 years, if we get decent rainfall, what our numbers could look like. Because as we all know, body weight and horn development is highly tied to groceries, and so
yeah.
the drought of 22 and 23 really set our deer back. So
Interesting. Um, and so sorry, I guess going back a little bit too to something that you mentioned earlier. Um, the point being community, making sure that your neighbors are kind of on the same page to reach that goal of good management. So if they're planning on going to a meeting, say that they're in your county and in one of those associations, what do those meetings look like?
very, very, and well, we have two different styles of meeting. One of them is very informal. It's the small group, the small individual meeting. We want the landowners visiting, talking. Then myself and or the Parks and Wildlife is going to get up and give something prudent to wildlife management, whether it's the spotlight surveys or it might be something on feral hogs. Screwworms obviously has been a big topic here lately. And so the goal of those is to get the members together. Usually we're handing out some type of information like the spotlight surveys or the harvest books, or they're turning them in. And then the other one is a little different. I have a multi wildlife meeting association meeting here, because they all want really good speakers to come to those little meetings. And I hate pulling my specialist in to talk to 10 people on a Friday night in Harper, Texas.
Yeah.
So, um, so we try to have one meeting here. It's on a weekend. It's Saturday afternoon typically. So if somebody's from out of town, if they're out of town, or absentee landowners can come. And I try to get a really good speaker, whether that's on, like Tiffany Lashsmith has come on and talked about lease laws. We've had different speakers who've done research on whitetail deer. And then we also do a lot of topics like quail has been one, turkey's been one, not that we aren't heavily focused on whitetail deer, but after a while, you can only talk so much on that. So feral hogs has been a big topic. And then we had the screwworm update, obviously, when it broke this summer, was a big topic for for the group then. But
Yeah.
so that's typically what the meetings look like. We want them short, we want them precise. I will say this: one of my WMAs, the opening weekend of deer season, they actually do a raffle and a barbecue that night before, and
Oh,
hunters
cool.
can sign up for best cull buck, heaviest doe, and so they have all different kinds of prizes and games. I say games, drawings set up to push hunters to better manage their deer population. Like does have still been something hunters don't want to shoot. So they might give $100 to the first 10 does that get brought in.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's they do management bucks. So if you bring or cull bucks, so if you bring in the sorriest cull buck, you may win by age, and then they do it by point size. You may get $500. And then they also do for the largest trophy, like each day has a different payout. So very, very um, neat group there. Does take
Yeah.
a lot of time, takes a lot of volunteers to put that on, but I know we have hunters in that area, and they really, really like working with that group.
Yeah,
So
that sounds really cool and a good way to, have some camaraderie with your neighbors if you don't get that too often. Um, what
yep,
have you ever been
yep,
to one of those?
definitely.
What's the most interesting cold buck you've seen brought in?
I have not done, unfortunately, is we have about 40 hunters at my local ranch between us and our neighbors. And so we do a very similar thing that night before, not WMA wide, but just with our ranch and some of the neighbors. And so I'm always busy doing that and don't really go down, hadn't been down there just because of the festivities that's happening at my place.
I hear you. That's fair. Well, let me think what else. So if if landowners in an area and they want to do this and they want to get their neighbors on board, where would be a good starting place for them?
So I'm going to say if you're west of I-35, a county agent or your local Texas Parks and Wildlife representative, and you can go online and Google either one of those. A lot of the WMAs that are west of I-35 are run by county agents in cooperation with Parks and Wildlife. The ones east of I-35 are primarily run by Texas Parks and Wildlife for some reason. I don't know why that was initiated like that, but it's
Mhm.
just how it typically is now. And then just getting a group of like-minded landowners together, and which is pretty easy. One of the hardest parts is you probably do need a president and then a treasurer or a secretary, and so that's where it gets a little tough finding somebody that'll step up and be the office or be the officers of the group.
Sure.
Um, so that's where it gets probably a little tough.
That's fair. Um, you'd also mentioned feral hogs earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything to this group that does a little bit more with that? I guess
So yes
I'm
and
thinking of
no.
like a
So a
predator
spinoff of
list.
this group is our Predator Commodity Association. A little bit different than our WMAs, but they actually collect dues from landowners, and it's very similar to list. And we communicate back and forth, and the WMAs are at the Predator Board meeting, and the Predator Board guys are at the WMAs looking for new members. But they pay dues, and I think it's like 20 cents an acre on their ranches, and then anytime them or their hunters or anybody shoots a feral hog or a coyote on their place, they get a bounty that's kind of preset by the association and how much money they have to give away. We are lucky now. The state commodity board, which is located in San Angelo, is heavily subsidizing that group, and so right now they're paying I think $7 per pig and about I think it's 75 for a coyote, and they give so much for red fox and bobcat. But it doesn't sound like a lot, but it pays for some corn, pays for some shells, and just kind of gets everybody in the mood of going out and trying to get rid of some feral hogs.
Yeah.
Um, we also, one of the big things we push in our WMAs is for our landowners to have what we call we build smaller, shorter pens around our deer feeders. These are like 33 inches is what we try to push. That way you're not feeding every feral hog in the county with your deer feeders. One, it increases their litter size, increases their survivability. And so I have a lot of landowners that call me and say, "Hey, Brad, I want to get rid of my feral hogs. They're rooting up my place." And that's the first thing I ask: Do you have a fence around your deer feeders? And they're like, "Nope." And I'm like, "Well, then if you're baiting them on your property, I'm not gonna. The easiest way is to quit feeding them, and they won't come on your property as much."
Sure.
But some people don't take it that well. I do want to shoot one every once in a while, and there's ways to get around that. But yeah, we show some of the different trap styles. We've had some WMA meetings where we've had videos of the different trap styles and from the nets, the pig brig, to the drop gates, to the total drop traps, and so talked about the pros and cons of all of those, and so great discussion on the feral hogs.
Cool, cool. And it sounds like they get to learn a lot at these meetings too. You said that you always try to get a good speaker to come in. So
Try to,
that's
yes.
cool.
One of the most interesting one was horny. We had horny toad. They're doing
Oh,
horny
that
toad
is cool.
research at Mason Mountain, and so yeah, that was probably one of the ones where they asked more questions than anything.
Oh, cool. That's interesting. And then sorry, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit.
You're good.
So uh you said that the bounty that they pay out, that's totally separate than like a county bounty, right?
It is, yes, yep. The county actually has their own bounty on coyotes here, and they did allow that predator association to start verifying the takes, but the county still pays a separate bounty on that. So
Oh, so
the
they can
county,
double up.
yep. So they
Oh,
can get, I think
okay.
that's 25 for the county bounty, and then it's either 75 or 100 for the local commodity association.
Wow.
Uh, and coyotes are getting bad here. I know in Blanco County, they've probably always been somewhat worse. But here we had tons of sheep and goat producers who kept them out. And we are now seeing a high influx of them. And we see our deer population going down considerably, which not to say it didn't need to some, but
Sure.
I think, unfortunately, if we don't keep a little control on the coyotes, it could crash. And the other reason, we have more people putting up high fences, and coyotes can annihilate fawns and older deer in those high fence properties just so
Mm,
much faster because they can't get away from them. And the
yeah.
coyotes actually learn how to use the high fences to their advantage. And
Mm,
so if you have a high fence place and you're not doing some predator control, you need to really look into it. So
interesting.
definitely important.
Yeah.
Carly, one last thing, not one last thing, but I do want to bring up our youth hunts. So every one of our wildlife associations pretty much sponsors a youth hunt, and they are put on through the Texas Youth Hunting Association. They have their own, that may not be the exact correct terminology, but they have an organization that raises money and has hunt masters to do these youth hunts. The big one, and they call it the super hunt, is the one at our Cave Creek Wildlife Management Area. They do about 60 kids. So you
Oh,
multiply that,
wow.
usually each one of them has a parent or two come with them. So that's 120 guests that come out, probably hunt about 40 or 50 different properties.
Oh,
And usually we do these the first and second weekend in January. Again, I'm at stock shows, and so I have been to one or two of them, but don't get to help a lot with these because our local stock show is going on right then.
sure.
But have an amazing group of volunteers that open their land up. They cook for the families. They set up all the area. They help them harvest or help them process their deer. They get prizes, tons of prizes together, where each kid kind of gets a gift basket. Oh man, just an amazing group. Also, when their kids aren't out hunting, they have educational series set up. So, each day they might have three or four 30-minute educational deals, like one's how to process your deer.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
a vet will come in and do a necropsy on a deer and talk about the different parts. And hunter safety is a big part of that too. So those are really, really neat where, are trying to educate. Just a lot of these are urban landowner or urban kids that don't have a place to hunt. And so trying to help educate that next generation of hunters.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So
Um,
lots of work there with WMAs, but a lot of it's fun and very rewarding as well.
that's awesome. And so the properties that they get to hunt on, it's just volunteers of people that are in the WMA.
Yeah, so probably not. Probably there's even some people outside the WMA that they
Okay.
hunt on, but they sign. That usually the hunt master will call. Like, or we got contacted. Harper has one for kids of veterans, which is very neat,
Oh,
and they contact us during the summer and make sure we still want to be a part of it, and then they have through that youth hunting association, they have liability, landowner liability. So,
sure.
we sign the waivers that they can come on our place, but then if anything happens, they have their own set of insurance and waivers. So
Of
help
course.
protect the landowners there in case something would go wrong, if something
Yeah.
did go wrong. But no, they draw off that wildlife association list very hard because one, it's a known list and we have access to it, and those individuals also know that their hunters probably don't want to shoot as many does as they should, and so these youth come in and take off the extra does that maybe the
Mm.
hunters don't hunt. So, yep.
Well, that's cool. Thanks for telling us about that. And then I guess we are getting close to the end. Was there
Okay.
anything that I didn't ask that you wanted me to ask or that you wanted to tell us about?
No, not really. I think we went through it all. It's really, really enjoy working with them. I've met some great people over different associations with the county. As being a county agent, I have to work with 4 or 5 new members every year that come up and take over as officers, and so I've developed a lot of lifelong family friends that I would have never met any
Oh,
other way. And I think you could do that just being a member of one of these associations.
that's awesome.
So.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. I know here in Blanco County, I've been asked about it a little bit, and so I hope that this kind of gives people some more perspective, or if they've never heard of it before, they can think about it a little bit. So thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, Miss Carly. Well, thank you for having me on. And if anybody wants to build one and needs some help, we can do that. You could just call here to the Gillespie County office and ask for me, and we could track down the right people. It might take a phone call or two to find the right person that might help you head it up. So we could help track that person down in your county.
Cool. Well, thanks again, and I hope y'all have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Carly. See you, ma'am. Bye.
Yeah.